Hi everybody, this is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I want to do another video in the series on the Pastors Course. This time it's video number 15, and we're going to say that the subject of this particular video is that it's E, under the letter E, and it's take time to study the movements of God in nations and communities and in churches. Now, this is a biblical command. The children of Israel were told that they were to recount and to repeat and to teach their children and the generation coming up all about God's wondrous deeds and the things that God had done in their lives. And the same is true for the church. The church were to talk about the great things that God had done. When the apostles went out and evangelized or served the Lord, they always came back and they always reported to the church what God had been doing with them. So it is of immense interest, to all believers, but in particular to pastors, that they might read and discover how God has moved in the past in the nations of the world, and in towns and villages and in various churches. And it would be good to read of God's deeds and of his victories in the past. Very important. One of the things that gripped me as a young man is reading the biographies of men and women of God. Sometimes it would be a woman of God, Lilias Trotter. Sometimes it would be a man of God, Harold St. John. And it was always a matter of great interest to me to read the biographies and to learn what they did. Not that we might copy what they do. God doesn't want another Lilias Trotter. God's had one. He doesn't want another Billy Graham. He doesn't want another John Wesley. God has had one already, and he's done his work and gone. What God is interested in is in doing something with you. However, I pity the man, the pastor, that doesn't have an interest in reading about the works that God has done in the lives of his servants in the past. The children of Israel were given very specific instructions that they were to tell stories of God's great deliverance from Pharaoh and from Egypt. The Lord said unto Moses, Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, that I may perform these miraculous signs of mine among them, and that you may tell your children and your grandchildren how severely I dealt with the Egyptians when I performed miraculous signs among them, so that you may know that I am the Lord. That's the point. And he says, this is in Exodus chapter 10, verse 1 and 2. So one of the things that has blessed God's people down the centuries is to live and to relive, as it were, the stories of God's servants in the past. We read of David. We read of Gideon. We read of Moses. We read of the travels of Abraham, and the life of Abraham and the life of Isaac and the life of Jacob and the life of Joseph. This is the bread and butter of the Christian. But there are many people down the centuries. Who's ever heard of the revival under Harold St. John? No, nobody. Who's ever heard of revivals as a result of the work of Lilias Trotter? These are people I mentioned a moment ago. People don't know these things. It's very important. The history of revivals, the history of the work of God. Who's ever thought or heard of a man called Christian David? He was an evangelist with the I think it was the Mennonites in the very early days. Who's ever heard of these people? It's very, very interesting, very fascinating. Not that we're in the same position as those men and women, not that we do everything exactly the same as those people, but we educate ourselves and we learn about what God has done in the past. One of the things that has blessed God's people down the centuries is to live and relive and to get into the story of God's servants in the past. Some pastors have devoted their time to reading, understanding, and recounting the history of our past, what God has done, and what he has caused to be written or written for our, is all written for our learning. We are not those people. God doesn't want us to copy them exactly. He doesn't want another George Muller. He doesn't want another D.L. Moody. He's had one. He's had one. But the fact that God has had one now doesn't mean that we're not interested in what they did, because we are terribly interested in what they did. Everything is written in the past, is written to teach us, so that through the endurance taught in the scriptures and the encouragement they provide, we might have hope. This is Romans chapter 15, verse 4. J. Edwin Orr, the famous revivalist, spent all his life studying and researching revival. It was a matter of most important interest for any pastor. He describes the manner in which God begins a work and how he carries it on in the lives of men of God. His videos are found on the internet. Just type in J. Edwin Orr and you'll see them all. They're heartwarming. They're challenging. They describe the dark days in which God began to work in many circumstances, often in a very small way, but often grew in a huge way. Of course, there are many biographies that will be of immense blessing. What more can I say? I do not have time to tell you about Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who by faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and so on. As you know the quote, it's from Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32 to 38. So let me ask you a question. Who are your heroes? Who are the people that you aspire to? Who are the people that challenge you? Okay? Who are the people that you emulate? Who is it that you would just love to just hold on to the hem of their garment and just learn something from them? Who are the people that you've read about? Okay? What are the movements of God that have inspired you from the past? And what revivals do you know about? Who led those revivals? What was the effect of the revival? Okay? And lastly, who do you know still alive that might inspire you? Who are the people that you look up to? Who are the people that inspire you, who encourage you, who give you strength and give you inspiration? These are the people. These are the people to know about. These are the people to acquaint yourself with. In this chapter 3, we've been looking at 5 main points. I'm going to read them out for you just so that you can remember. Yes, remember. First thing is, take time out to have a complete revival of your relationship with the Lord every month. Number 2, take care to look out for the spiritual needs of every person that you minister to. Be diligent. Look out for them. Thirdly, take advice on how to serve the Lord and your people. Number 4, take time to wait upon the Lord for his special leading in your ministry. This isn't just for your personal Christian life. This is about your ministry. You need to be led of the Lord in your ministry. And then lastly, take time to study the movements of God in nations, in communities, and in churches. Well, we look forward to speaking to you on the next video. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you for now. Bye-bye.